Okay, so we've covered all the chapter sections for chapter 10. And so this is going to be a chapter 10 review. So there'll be some review on each section. So on the left side of the video, you'll see the section, and then there'll be questions and examples on the other side. What I recommend is that you try doing this on your own and then watch this video to check your answers, or just check the answer key, and then whatever you got wrong, find that on the video. So the first section is 10.1, where we had to find all 6 ratios. So just a quick reminder that you are using the SOHCAHTOA. So sine of theta. So first step is just labeling what you have. So across from the angle you're looking at is your opposite. The one touching is your adjacent. And across from the right angle is your hypotenuse. So now remember, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to do 13 over the hypotenuse, which is 29. Cosine is adjacent over the hypotenuse, so 18 over 29. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. So opposite over adjacent would be 13 over 18. And then cosecant, secant, and cotangent are the opposites. So cosecant is the opposite of sine, which is then going to be 29 over 13. Secant would be 29 over 18, and cotangent would be 18 over 13. Okay, the next one, find the other ratios given that sine of theta is 33 over 65. So I'm going to go ahead and start by drawing a picture, and I'm going to say that this right here is my theta. So this would be my opposite, this would be my adjacent, and this would be my hypotenuse. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so my opposite is 33. My hypotenuse is 65. And we can go ahead and fill in this one because it's given to us. And in order to write cosine and tangent, we need to know what the adjacent side is. So we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. So this side plus this side squared is going to equal our hypotenuse squared. And then we're going to go ahead and solve. So this 33 squared would be 1089. 65 squared would be 4225. Yes, I do know those right off the top of my head. No, not really. I did them ahead of time. Anyways, moving on. Subtract 1089 on both sides. And we get a squared equals 3136. Square root both sides, and a equals 56. So this side right here is 56. So then cosine would be 56 over 65. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, so 33 over 56. And then cosecant, I'm flipping these. 65 over 33, 65 over 56, and 56 over 33. So that's a brief overview of 10.1. 10.2 is when we were looking at the unit circle. So find the radian measure of the angle with a measure of 210. So find 210 on the unit circle right here. And then the radian would be 7 pi over 6. Okay, next one, find the angle measure of 135. 135 right here. So that's 3 pi over 4. So I'm not doing any math in that. I am just strictly looking at the unit circle and pulling the data from there. Okay, next, evaluate and find the exact value. So one thing to remember on this is that when you're looking at these coordinate points on the outside of the circle, your x is your cosine value and your y is your sine value. So if I'm looking at sine of 3 pi over 4, I'm going to find 3 pi over 4, which is right here. And I'm looking at sine, so I'm going to look at the y value. So right here. So this would be square root of 2 over 2. Sine of 180. Here's 180. I'm looking at the y value, which is 0. Cosine of 11 pi over 6, so find 11 pi over 6. Right here, I'm looking at cosine, so now I'm looking at the x value, which is square root 3 over 2. The last one, cosine of 240. Here's 240. Looking at the x value, so it's equal to negative 1/2. So that is your review for 10.2. If you have any questions on either of those, go ahead and email Ms. Holstad and I, and we'll get back to you. Next is find the measure in degrees to the nearest tenth. This is 10.3. This is the last section that we had just covered using the inverses. So this is saying sine value of theta equals 0.431. And we want to find the actual angle measure. So remember, we take the sine inverse of both sides. So theta equals the sine inverse of 0.431. So theta to the nearest tenth would be 25.5 degrees. And then same idea over here. We're just dealing with cosine now. So cosine of theta equals 0.707. Take the inverse of both sides. Plug that into your calculator or your phone, and you get that it's approximately 45.0 degrees. Okay, find the missing angle. So here's the angle. We have the opposite and the adjacent. So we have tangent of x equals 3/4. Inverse of both sides. So this is going to give us approximately 36.9 degrees. Over here, this side is the hypotenuse because it's across the 90-degree angle. This one is touching, so it's the adjacent. So we're going to be looking at the cosine of x equals 2.6 over 17.9. And to find that actual angle measurement, we're going to take the inverse of both sides. And we get that it is approximately 81.6 degrees. If you have any questions, again, go ahead and email. And we're going to move on to probably what was your favorite section of this chapter, which was graphing these things. So, quick reminder, you have to find 3 things to graph this. The first thing is your amplitude. And that you're going to find by taking the absolute value of A. You also need to find the number of cycles. And remember, that's like how many times it repeats. And that you find by just looking at the B value. And then you also need to find the period, which you find by doing 2 pi divided by B. And just another reminder that when you're doing this, the A is in front of the sine and B is in front of the theta, and it's the same for cosine. So let's go ahead and do these. So finding the amplitude right here, y equals 1.5 cosine 2 theta. So we're going to look at A, which is right here because it's in front. So we're going to look at the absolute value of 1.5, which is equal to 1.5. So this is saying that the highest it can go is 1.5 and the lowest it can go is negative 1.5. So if I say this is 2, this is 1, negative 2, it can't go past right here or right here. Okay, number of cycles and period, you're looking at the B value, which is right there in front of the theta. So number of cycles is B, so there's 2 cycles, which means, remember, cosine starts up at 1, or in this case it's going to start at 1.5, goes down, and then back up. We're going to have 2 of these. And the last thing we need to know is the period. So we're going to do 2 pi divided by B, which is 2, which equals pi. So that means that it's going to repeat at pi. So now we can go ahead and graph this. So we know that it starts at 1.5. And then it's going to come back at 1.5 right here. Gonna change these markers really quick. It's not quite working out. There we go. And then directly in the middle of these 2 points is our lowest point, which is at 1.5, negative 1.5. So again, I just did this point, and this point. So then I can kind of go in between. So it goes down to this one and then back up. And then that's 1 cycle and it does it again. So at 2 pi, it's going to be here. In the middle, it'll be back down here. And it goes up, down, and back up again. And that is that one's graph. Okay, repeating down here, the absolute value of 2 is 2, so the highest it's going to go is here, and the lowest it's going to go is here. Number of cycles, 0.5. So we're going to have sine is up and then down. We're not going to have this second half. We're only going to have this part right here. And then the last one is where does it repeat? So the period. So we're going to do 2 pi divided by 0.5. Do that, and you get that it repeats at 4 pi. So we're only going to have the up curve. We know that sine starts at 0, 0. And if it repeats at 4 pi, that means that it's back at 0 halfway through that, which is 2 pi. Directly in between these 2 points that we just made is our highest point, which we said is at 2. So it's going to be here. And then we're just going to go ahead and draw the curve. And that one is done. that is it for Chapter 10 review. Email with questions.